everyone, Mitch coming in from the Commander's Core Studio. Welcome to the show. So on today's episode, some brand new Lorwyn Eclipsed commanders are here, and I'm here to ask, are they incredibly powerful and on a budget even, or might they be budget breakers or somewhere between? Let's jump into it. So first up, well, this one can be built on an incredibly low budget, but it is going to be incredibly annoying, I can tell you at that. Now, here's the thing with this one. Like any commander, you can build around in any way, and essentially there are ways to make it so that it's not a quote-unquote toxic commander. This one, though, I think most people, the most powerful version of it, is unfortunately a bit of a table wrecker, and yeah, you might get kicked out of your playgroup for playing this, or just asked not to play it. A 1/1 bird bard with flying for strike and lifelink for 2 mana in Orzhov, Abigale, eloquent first year. When Abigale enters, up to one other target creature loses all abilities. Put a flying counter, a first strike counter, and a lifelink counter on that creature. Keep in mind, this doesn't say like until end of turn loses all abilities. No. That just like permanently erases the creature when it comes to whatever they do. Now they still keep their power, they still keep their toughness, and they actually get, some benefits potentially with a, hey, flying first strike lifelink. You know what this has. That being said, for an opponent's creature, typically you are, downscaling that creature, right? You are going, hey, you know what? You do all these fun things, maybe like your commander, which you build the entire deck around, an opponent's commander, I should say. And all of a sudden you're like, you know what? You no longer do that. You don't get that. You get a blank vanilla creature that then I will give you the abilities of flying first strike and lifelink. So, yeah, you're basically never helping out your opponents with this kind of a commander, obviously, and you are kind of just erasing what your opponent's strategies are. It's kind of, in a way, to me, like a Drannith Magistrate in the command zone in a weird way, where Drannith Magistrate, like, shuts down what your opponent wants to do, like, with their commander, because it doesn't let them play it in the first place. It's at 2 mana, it's low to the ground, it's early on. This is more so, okay, when you get your commander out, I'm going to shut it down. And then you can also blink it as well, too. Now, here's the thing. I mean, blink and feign death and very easily reset this essentially to do it again on their commander if they get it back into play again, or another opponent's commander. You can basically make it so your opponent's commander decks just don't work if they're built entirely around their commander. Here's the thing, though, okay? Again, you don't have to build in that way. You could build in a way where you're utilizing your own creatures that have massive downsides. Like, a certain dinosaur essentially that costs like 3 mana. It's like a 7/6 or something like that. And it's like, hey, beginning of upkeep, discard a card or sacrifice a creature or whatnot. Like those kind of cards that have massive downsides. And now you can say, okay, yeah, those, annoying upkeep triggers or when it attacks triggers, I can get rid of those and just turn them into plain, again, no text creatures and just give them those 3 things that can really help them. Again, flying first strike, lifelink, you do some really exciting things with that. So again, this is a commander that you can definitely build on a budget in any kind of a way. You just need to be careful if you're building it in the kind of quote-unquote jerk way, where you are, again, blanking your opponent's commanders and that's all you're doing, essentially. That's more Staxy kind of build, and a lot of playgroups and a lot of LGSs aren't necessarily fans of that at, again, casual commander levels. At, CEDH, do whatever you want. But now let's move on to a different commander, and one that is being brought back, but in a lesser way, kind of. The Reaper King No More. I see what you did there, Wizards. Very clever. It was the Reaper King, and then you're like, the Reaper King No More. 3/3 Scarecrow for, either 6 mana with, basically just any kind of mana, or specifically Jund, and you can cast for just 3, or any kind of combination between. When the Reaper enters, put a -1/-1 counter up to 2 target creatures, I should say. Whenever a creature an opponent controls with a -1/-1 counter and it dies, you may put that card on the battlefield under your control, do something once each turn. Here's the thing with this one. Yeah, that's really good, actually. This is, the old Reaper King is a very, very powerful commander when built properly. Scarecrow tribal, sure, and Scarecrows, there's only so many of those out there, which actually this just slots right in, again, basically. But that being said, actually slots in pretty disgustingly. That being said, being able to essentially utilize this to go, hey, you know what we're going to do? We're going to kind of put, like, little counters on our opponent's creatures that are like, hey, I'm saving that for later for me, okay? Because I am going to steal your creatures. This is a great commander for a -1/-1 counters build. Again, players have been asking for that for a while, again, in Jund, basically, so you can use, Hapatra and, like, Scorpion King kind of in the same deck, essentially. And so with this now, you can do it. You can do some really cool things with it. There's a lot of cards that give you benefits for -1/-1 counters. We're getting a lot of proliferation effects as well. So yeah, being able to just go, okay, I'm proliferating here, there, and everywhere. There is that, restriction on this, I would say, where it says do this only once each turn. That's probably needed because, yeah, doing it more than once each turn, just like, okay, I just perpetually just keep stealing the board over and over again, and this basically becomes like a Toxrill kind of commander. I mean, it already kind of can be-ish, if you get the proliferate going on. It's not automatic like Toxrill is, but this is one where you are going to be stealing your opponent's creatures quite a bit. It is, again, once each turn, so with each trip around the table, there's 4 opportunities for you to steal, which is great and fantastic. So you need to keep those minus counters up. There's plenty of ways to do that. And yes, you're going to be taking your opponent's creatures out. And yes, you're going to be stealing them. And yes, your opponents, well, are going to be in trouble because you're going to be stealing their best creatures. And it's going to be fantastic. So yeah, a commander that can definitely do a lot for you. The Reaper, King No More. Love the design. Next up, we've got Mass of Mysteries, a 5/5 elemental for every single color. Wooburg, the best color combination, in my opinion. First strike, vigilance, and trample. Beginning of combat on your turn, another target elemental you control gains myriad until end of turn, which means that whenever attacks for each opponent other than defending player, they create a token's copy of that tapped and attacking that player planeswalker they control, exile tokens out of combat. This is one where, well, it's a very simple and straightforward commander. It's one that is, well, again, a decent body. Again, 5/5 for 5 mana that gives you first strike, vigilance, and trample, so you're able to just keep swinging with it pretty consistently for the most part. And of course, if you pump it, you can do some pretty devastating things with that. That being said, the big thing here obviously is going, hey, okay, combat, elemental, you get myriad, you swing, and I'm getting 2 token copies of you. Meaning that, hey, you know what? Temporary copies, I should say. Meaning that, you know what? Hey, what's going to happen is you get out there, and if you've got an ETB, I get that. If you've got a combat damage trigger, I get that. If I have a death trigger, well, I need to actually work around that because they get exiled at the end of the turn. But leave the battlefield trigger or get, unless you have like a free sacrifice salad or something like that. Regardless, you get triggers off of that other creature most of the time if you're building around this properly, where you have elementals that really want to work that way, or you just have big elementals that can just smack your opponents. This is a commander that can definitely be built on a budget. It is going to be a tribal commander. It is one that's going to be, well, yeah, there's some high-end elementals that you might not be able to use on a budget, but yeah, there's some ones that you can extend. There's some really exciting things you can do, obviously. Of course, with Myriad, that actually works really well with actually, token doublers, token triplers. They're not exactly budget-friendly. That being said, yeah, this is a commander that does have, in my opinion, like a higher threshold, essentially, for a budget, again, because it is a tribal commander. That being said, it is one that can be built even on the smallest of budgets in a very effective way. There's a lot of great elementals out there, and you can do a lot of exciting things. And I'm just keep thinking about like Risen Reef and getting extra copies of that. Oh my goodness, gross. Regardless, it's a fun one, and again, yet another home for 5-color elementals. Moving on, we've got Sanar, Innovative First Year, a 2/4 Goblin Sorcerer for 4 mana, and is it Vivid. At the beginning of your first main phase, reveal cards to the top of your library to reveal X non-land cards, where X is the number of colors among permanents you control. For each of those colors, you may exile a card of that color from among exiled cards, then shuffle. You may cast exile cards this turn. This is one where it is an interesting build for sure. It is one where, again, like, it might work better, obviously, in a 5-color deck than it does just in a 2-color deck. But as your commander, you are obviously limited to those 2 colors. That being said, there are ways to make things of the other colors, basically. There are ways to essentially go, okay, I've got other colors in the deck, not, with their actual color identity, but they can make things that are different colors, essentially. So there are ways to make it so that you are revealing more than, your normal 2. You are going to automatically reveal 2 thanks to your commander, which is quite nice. But being able to reveal, again, 5 would be quite nice, too. And of course, with that, you're not actually going to be able to play cards, because there's no color identity that's outside of your 2 colors. That being said, being able to look at the top 5 and play 2 versus 2 and 2 is quite nice. It's an interesting challenge for a commander. It's one that probably fits more so in the 99 of another deck. That being said, definitely one that can be built very budget friendly. Definitely one that can be built on a higher budget too if you really want to. It's one that you can take advantage of playing things off of exile too, so do keep that in mind. But yes, it is a fun commander. It is one that gives you access to more cards. And yeah, just literally being like, okay, potentially impulse draw 2 in a way. Yeah, that's quite good for a low to the ground commander. Moving on, Doran, Besieged by Time. Aren't we all? A 0/5 Truefolk Druid for 4 mana in Abzan. Each creature spell you cast with toughness greater than its power costs 1 less to cast. That is just automatic cost reduction, basically, for your entire deck if you're building it properly. Whenever a creature you control attacks or blocks, it gets +X/+X until end of turn. Reflects the greatest difference, I should say, between its power and toughness. Yeah, this is, again, yet another home, like the original Doran was, for basically, hey, giant, no, defenders, I guess is the original one, right? Where defenders essentially were allowed to, deal damage basically based on their toughness. It's not necessarily defender tribal, I should say, although you definitely can. You just need other ways to allow your defenders to attack too. But still being able to just go, okay, yeah, giant differences between toughness and power. Yeah, they have a new home with this one as well. Because again, being able to just have that cost reduction, that's huge, especially when it comes to like a lot of those. Again, let's say that you do have those ways and those tutors to go get things, that let your defenders attack. You have those giant walls that cost like 2 mana, but they have like 7 toughness or whatnot. I'm just making up numbers here, okay? Be able to cast enough for just 1 mana and be like, oh yeah, you go out and play. Cool, all right. And then if I am able to attack with you, you get a giant pump effect essentially based on that differential. So yeah, not only are they going to be harder to take out because they've got a giant amount of toughness now too. I mean, even more toughness. Again, if it's like a 0-8, that difference is 8. Now it is an 8-16. And again, maybe something you can play for, again, say 2-3 mana or whatever it is. You can get out there very, very quickly. Yeah, so I do think that there are kind of 2 different versions of this. One that really focuses on being able to get out those ways to let defenders attack. And then another one that like doesn't really necessarily focus on defenders, but just focuses on creatures that have that really big gap between power and toughness. Definitely a fun one, and definitely one that can be built on a budget. There's a lot of budget-friendly cards that are, high toughness, not a lot of power, because a lot of other decks focus on the opposite. So yeah, you can do a lot of cool things with this one. Moving on, we've got Bree of Clan Stoutarm, a 4/4 giant warrior for 4 mana in Boros. By paying 2 mana in white, tap another target creature you control gains flying and lifelink until end of turn. Quite nice. Beginning of your end step, if you gain life this turn, exile card to the top of your library until you exile a non-land card. You may cast the card without paying its mana cost. If that spell's mana value is less than or equal to the amount of life you gain this turn, otherwise put it into your hand. Yeah, this is one where you can do some very exciting things with it. You can do some absolutely crazy things with it. I mean, being able to give another creature you control, flying and lifelink can be a great way to just get them through in combat, gain whatever amount of life the damage they're dealing. And yeah, if you got a powerful enough creature, which yeah, you're in, red is an aggressive color, essentially, I would say when it comes to power, you can get out there, hit, and be able to go, okay, cool. Yeah, I just actually did a lot of damage. I can basically cast whatever I'm going to hit. It's a giant cascade effect, essentially. And of course, if you get ways to set the top of your library or know what the top of your library is, that can really help as well. There's only so many ways to do that color combination, but still, I mean, I guess there's plenty of ways to know what the top of your library is, with certain effects, but still, being able to just set the top of your library, yes, there are some ways to do that. So yeah, you can set yourself up for a big play, or it can just be, organized chaos in a way and just hitting some massive things off the top of your library. And yeah, you can do a lot of fun things with that. Being able to essentially, again, really take advantage of not only obviously combat to gain those life, but being able to utilize some big life gain spells as well. I mean, something as simple as, Congregate. It's an instant speed, 4 mana white spell that's like, hey, target player gains 2 life, for each creature on the battlefield. Yeah, you can gain like easily 40 life in a turn, or a life doubler effect basically is gaining you a ton of life too. So being able to just go, okay, I just gained a ton of life. Let's see what I hit off the top and be able to cast whatever you want. Yeah, you can do a lot of crazy things with this one. Moving on, we've got Trystan, Callous, Cultivator, a 3/4 elf druid with Death Touch for 3 mana in green. Whenever this creature enters or transforms into Trystan, Callous, Cultivator, mill 3 cards. Then if there's an elf card in your graveyard, you gain 2 life. At the beginning of your first main phase, you may pay a black mana. If you do, transform Trystan, flipping over into Trystan, Penitent Color, a 3/4 elf warlock with Death Touch. When this creature transforms into Trystan, Penitent Color, mill 3 cards. You may exile an elf card from your graveyard. If you do, each opponent loses 2 life. Beginning of your first main phase, you may pay a green. If you do, transform it. This is an interesting take on Elf Tribal in Golgari, which obviously we've got other committers that do that. It is one that can give you, well, a way obviously to punish your opponents essentially, from elves that have been taken out essentially, which is quite nice. That being said, yeah, the front side, again, enters or transforms, both, I mean, basically, but this one, a little easier to use and abuse because you can utilize, again, the essentially, well, like Feign Death type cards and like Sacrifice type cards. There's a lot of work to do with this, though, when it comes to like the amount of value you're getting out of it. Mill 3 cards, cool. All right, gain a little bit of life, cool. And there are life gain triggers that you can take advantage of. Obviously, flipping back and forth can be very nice, too. It's not that much of a cost to do so. That being said, overall, there are definitely more powerful elf ones out there. This can be an interesting build around it, but it's not going to be the most powerful elf tribal build out there. It can definitely be built on a budget, or yeah, elf decks can get very expensive, obviously. Again, many tribal decks can, because there's certain cards that are obviously specifically good for that tribe. They're going to be incredibly expensive. So yeah, again, either on a budget or on a big budget, it's elf tribal. It can be very powerful. Moving on, Ferrafor Young Yu, a 4/7 Treefolk Druid for 7 mana in green. Enters, create a number of 1/1 green sapling tokens equal to the number of counters among creatures target player controls, and you can tap and double the number of each kind of counter on target creature. So this is one where you can do some absolutely crazy things where, I mean, just at a base level, let's say you're playing against an opponent that like has a bunch of counters on their creatures. If they're playing +1 counters build, or another kind of counters build, essentially, cool. Thank you. I just play this and I make an insane amount of creatures. Great, good for me. Obviously, you don't want to just count on that. If your opponents don't have any creatures with counters on them, you're going to be in trouble. You can utilize, some -1/-1 counter synergies and that kind of stuff with this, but you are in mono green, so do keep that in mind. That being said, yeah, if you're just building around your own creatures with their own counters, you can definitely play into that a bit easier. And again, on an ETB, luckily, they limited this to green, so it's not like you can, blink and just keep doing that over and over again very easily. That being said, there are things like Conjurer's Closet, obviously, certain kinds of equipment that can help you when it comes to blinking, replaying. There's ways to do that, and there are ways to get this ETB even more potent. I mean, Panharmonicon, doubling that up, or again, like a doubling season type effect, doubling up the number of counters, or creatures, I should say, counters and creatures with that one, which is absolutely crazy. Obviously, a very good one for this build. But yes, this one also has a way to tap and double the number of each kind of counter target creature. You can do some absolutely bonkers things with that. I mean, I'm just thinking about like at a base level, like, oh yeah, hey, there's certain creatures out there, or one creature maybe I'm thinking of that's like, you know what? Every single time a player casts a spell, I get a counter. Oh, cool. And then I can redistribute those counters. Oh, cool. And with this one, it's like, okay, let's double that up. Cool. Let's just keep going. I mean, ways to untap it as well, of course. There's plenty of ways to do that in green. Vitalize type cards to just do it again and again and again. You can very easily turn something into a one-shot KO that just starts off with a couple of counters on it. +1 counters, I should say. So yeah, there's a lot of different avenues for this, and just a way to, again, just dominate the board, just even without doing very much at all. If an opponent is already playing a counters build, you're like, okay, cool, give me all the creatures in the world. Thank you. And now I'm going to start doubling up. Well, I mean, with that, you won't necessarily double up your opponent's counters on their creatures. Maybe you would if you can make some deals, but yeah, more so giving your own threats even more counters and make them more threatening. You can do some absolutely crazy things with that. Next up, Grub, Storied Matriarch, a 2/1 Goblin Warlock with Menace for 3 mana in black, but this is a Rakdos commander. When this creature enters or transforms into Grub, Storied Matriarch, return to one target Goblin card from your graveyard back to your hand. At the beginning of your first main phase, you may pay a red. If you do, transform it. Flips over into Grub, Notorious Auntie, a 2/1 Menacing Goblin Warrior. Whenever Grub attacks, you may blight 1. If you do, create a tap that attacking token that's a copy of the blighted creature, except it has beginning of the end step. Sacrifice this token. And then, of course, you can flip it back over by paying a black at the first main phase. So, here's what's going to happen with this one. Well, this side is slightly better than the other side. I mean, it's nice. Very nice to be able to get goblins back. It really, really is. Being able to just blight creatures, though, that's quite nice. Or, forcing your opponent to actually do so, obviously. And being able to go like, hey, I get a copy of it. Nice. If they only have one creature and it's a very good creature, obviously getting a copy of that one is fantastic. That being said, yeah, I mean, there's going to be times you don't get that good of a copy, but there's going to be other times where you get a very good copy. And regardless, blighting is just nice to take down your opponent's creatures. Yeah, it's quite nice. It's a fun commander. Again, Goblins is a very well-supported tribe, obviously. There are better Goblin commanders out there, of course. That being said, this is a very interesting one. And of course, you can take advantage of, again, Goblins, too, that you can just keep getting back again and again and again. And you are in a color combination where there are ways to utilize this. Again, the ETB, essentially, again, like Feign Death type cards, keep bringing it back when it dies again and again and again to get that ETB. It's one that can definitely build my budget. There's a lot of budget-friendly goblins out there. And again, as I said with any tribe, there's a lot of expensive tribal cards as well. That being said, a lot of decks are going to fit in between that. Being able to essentially utilize, again, both sides of this card is going to be very important. But yeah, I'd say that the backside and making it so that you can just keep getting extra value off your opponent's creatures can be quite nice. And finally, Rhys the Evermore, a 2/2 elf warrior with flash for 2 mana in white. When Rhys enters, another target creature you control gains persist until end of turn. Until end of turn is key there, and obviously you can't be like, hey, you have persist forever. And then, like, I guess you could be like, okay, it gets a counter. That counter stays on it everywhere it goes. maybe. That being said, so when it dies, if it had no -1 counters on it, return to the battlefield. Arnso's control a -1 counter on it. By paying a white mana, you tap, remove any number of counters from target creature you control. Activate only as a sorcery. Yet players out there that are Dark Depths players were like, oh, it says creatures. Dang it. Yeah, being able to essentially do this to any permanent, that would immediately be like, yeah, let's just combine this with Dark Depths. That being said, of course, you can combine it with Dark Depths. There are ways to turn Dark Depths into a creature temporarily, obviously, and then go, okay, now I will have you, lose all your counters. And there's a kind of combo there for you to get up Merit Lage. Good for you. That being said, this one, obviously, the initial combinations, like, okay, I give you Persist, you die, you come back, I remove a counter. Okay, cool. There are obviously many, many ways to blink this in white. It is a really good blink color, so being able to just get that ETB again and again and again, it can really help you out, or bring it back to your hand and replay it. Again, it's pretty cheap. So yeah, being able to do that can be quite nice. That being said, yeah, definitely some creatures out there that have some negative counters on them that you don't want necessarily, and this being able to get rid of them, it's a cool combination for those cards. And again, just like a Dark Depths, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of Dark Depths combinations with this one. There's definitely ways where, not as many, obviously, if you were in green as well, but ways to essentially turn Dark Depths into a creature and then make it so that you can remove those counters from Dark Depths and then go, bye-bye opponents, Merit Lage is here.
And with that, this episode is coming to a close, so it's my turn to hear from you. In the comments below, let me know your thoughts are on this episode. And of course, as always, thanks again and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.